Gators Breakdown episode 40 is ready to go. Kind of a impromptu episode here. Florida gets some bad news midweek, heading into the final official visit weekend before signing day. This is going to be Gators Breakdown episode 40, where we talk about the Florida Gators losing commit Elijah Blades and Kai Leon Hebert committing to Miami, surprisingly there. So, I am David Waters, your host. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SCC. You can find all your Gators Breakdown episodes on SoundCloud, iTunes, here on YouTube if you're watching live. Just search on those sites, and you can get the links by following Gators Breakdown on Twitter at Gators Breakdown, and on Facebook. You can search Gators Breakdown there and follow it in all those places. There. So this is one of those shows, I didn't really think I'd be doing. I mentioned this was an impromptu. I didn't think I'd be doing about the topic either. About just kind of falling apart right before signing day for the Gators right now, and losing Elijah Blades and Hebert committing to Miami. I kind of alluded to yesterday that I had heard some news from some South Florida prospects, Hebert being one of them, C.J. Henderson, Christopher Henderson being the other, that Miami was really, really in play for these guys. And fans should probably temper some expectations going into signing day from what I was hearing, because these guys were really serious about Miami as far as, them actually favoring Miami more than they were Florida. Didn't know it would come this quick. But I was hearing and leaning that way. Today's Wednesday, so that was Tuesday morning after our last podcast Monday night, and Tuesday morning when I was on the Bill King show, talking about how everything was in a way kind of hunky-dory for Gators recruiting and looking kind of positive going into the final official visit weekend. But now, by a couple of hours later after the Bill King show, I'm on his show at 8 a.m. Eastern. A couple of hours later, to get the intel that Hebert and Henderson were probably looking at Miami and not Florida. Florida was trying to get Hebert in for a official visit weekend on this last weekend, and maybe I kind of heard the rumblings that the lack of an offensive line coach was really holding him up. I tried to confirm that, and that's kind of when I got all the news there about that. So it hurts, if you're a Gator fan, looking forward to signing day now, when the Wednesday before final official visit weekend, you lose one of your top commits in Blades and one of your top targets in Hebert. Losing Hebert itself is not necessarily a negative, but combined with everything, combined with the perception of Florida recruiting, this doesn't look good when you lose a recruit to Miami right now. Of course, Florida has two good four-star offensive linemen, one committed, one already on campus, T.J. Moore and Kadeem Telford. Those guys are going to be good. Those guys both are probably better than Hebert, but Hebert is highly recruited for a reason. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. Florida, would love to have him. It would be three offensive linemen, a position that's kind of already finally bright numbers-wise from definitely from when Jim McElwain took over. He took care of the number part of it. I think young talent is there as well, but in my opinion, in the SEC, you can never have too many offensive linemen. So I mentioned, the lack of an offensive line coach kind of being the issue here, and that really looks like that was the main reason. I don't know enough to say it was the only reason. I know it was a big reason. And it was a big reason that was brought up in multiple places, and one that I confirmed. But, what is the holdup there? There's not a good excuse Jim McElwain can really give of not really having an offensive line hire, especially if you're from the college ranks. I get the whole contract thing. I get these guys might get bonuses. This is Florida. Pay those bonuses for them. Their new contract that you're drawing up for them, you can make that money up. You can make that difference up. That's not, that's not an excuse I will buy by any means. Now, if it's a guy from the professional level and he has a different type of contract and how those play out, maybe so. But, losing a guy because you don't have an offensive line coach right now is kind of unacceptable right now, in my opinion. So, that hurts Florida. perception wise more than anything. I think right now, you can't, the McElwain kind of hate train is going on right now of not being able to recruit, winning a down east 2 years in a row. I mean, I'll give him a little bit more credit for that, than most will, but it's still, I mean, it's not looking good. It's hard to defend the way he recruits, the way. I mean, yes, he scouts well. Don't get me wrong. We've seen that the young players Florida has, and the Callaways and the Scarlets and P Ryans, getting those type of guys who, Scarlett was highly recruited, but Callaway was kind of 3-star, low 4-star in some rankings. P Ryan, I think, kind of showed up a little bit better. Some guys on defense, that linebacker looked good than kind of what they were given credit for. But still, you can't be Florida. You can't be what Florida is to most of the nation, getting by with 3-4-star guys. We know you win the recruiting battle. If you win elite recruiting battles, you do what FSU's doing. You do what Alabama's doing right now. You do what Ohio State's doing. And we know it with Urban Meyer. We know it better than anybody. That's how you win national titles, not what Jim McElwain is doing. This is not trending in the right direction. And this kind of just hits that home right now with losing Blades and losing Hebert. So not a good look. I'm not too prepared to do this because I didn't necessarily expect this news. I wasn't going to do a podcast tonight, but this is kind of one to just update everybody on what's going on and maybe why some things happen, and kind of a look forward. But I already kind of spoke in depth about Hebert, but now Elijah Blades coming off of a visit to Nebraska, where it looked like he enjoyed himself a good bit. And asked me if you listen to the early week podcast. I thought Blades was one of those guys who would stick. And even before this podcast, even right before he posted on Twitter that he was decommitting, I kind of thought he was still going to be in this class, and he's still considering Florida, he says. But what happens, when you have a need at defensive back, you have a need at corner? This guy is one of the elite talents in the country at that position. You have Tabor leaving. You have Wilson leaving. He has a chance to come in and get a good bit of playing time as a highly rated prospect. Eyeballs will be on him. He's playing in the Swamp. He's playing in big games as a defensive back where he can maybe start as a freshman at some point in the season for the University of Florida. And he's now having second thoughts. That's another hard sell. How does Jim McElwain, sell that? It's just another, kink in the armor there of what is going on with this recruiting class. Any kind of momentum you had going into this final official visit weekend has come to a screeching halt. Yes, there's still targets out there, and yes, Florida's now ranked 31st in 24/7 recruiting after Blades decommit, and of course, Hebert was never going to put his numbers into those recruiting rankings. But losing Blades dropped Florida all the way to 31st, so they're around right now behind Michigan State, Oregon, Louisville. Oregon, first-year head coach and Taggart there. Florida, as of now, is behind them. And don't get me wrong, Florida's going to shoot up a little bit more going into signing day and coming up. But with the loss of Blades, and if he doesn't come back in this class, you're not looking at as good as a finish as I kind of alluded to yesterday. That may happen now. Just in your own conference, as it stands right now, you are behind Arkansas, behind Mississippi State, behind Kentucky, behind South Carolina, behind Tennessee, behind Texas A&M, Auburn, LSU, your main rival, one of your main rivals, Florida State. You're behind Georgia. You're behind Alabama. It's Florida should never be in this position a week before National Signing Day. There is no excuse. Facilities, you can give me that excuse, but not to be this bad. Florida should never be this bad in recruiting. So, a week out, you get this terrible news of a big-time target that everybody thought was a lean to you just as of a couple of days ago. Hebert comes off of his Miami visit. He decommits from Michigan. Kind of everybody saw some writing on the wall that he may be going to Florida. There was some. I've kind of been told that he decommitted kind of privately, maybe even as a couple weeks ago from Michigan, which gave Florida probably even more confidence that they were going to get him. That it necessarily wasn't off the Miami visit, but whoops, no offensive line coach is the main reason. Miami, I guess, has a lot to sell him, and he goes there. He's staying close to home. I can guarantee you that. So shutting down his recruitment, he's not going to be visiting Florida this weekend. He's done. So he looks, to be, next Wednesday putting that fax in to Miami. And now for Blades, I mean, I guess it's probably a Florida-Nebraska battle. I don't know. He'll get much time at USC with him being in Orlando. I know Florida coaches visited his family this week, and I guess there wasn't enough there to not make him second guess his decision to go to Florida. So, what is this recruiting staff doing? What is this coaching staff doing to rally their troops and to finish on a high note here on signing day coming up? Because right now it's not looking good. It is not looking good. I didn't want to be right about the Hebert and Henderson situation. I mean, Henderson can still end up in this class. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say he's out of here, but I mean, from what I've been told, it doesn't look good. And the source are, my intel was right about Hebert going. So we'll see what happens. I was even going into today saying that if Florida could get Hebert on campus and maybe whisper in his ear who the offensive line coach is, and maybe the offensive line coach hire is made quickly after signing day, that Florida may be in good shape there, even after being told what I was told. But and Florida couldn't even get him on campus now. He shut it down. So, I mean, what happened? There has to be, is there I mean, we don't know this. I don't think we will know this. Is there a single issue that happened where recruits are now kind of whispering to themselves about Florida and the lack of the want to go there from big-time elite recruits? Now, I know Zachary Carter, who's been in this class, been committed for a while, probably one of the biggest recruiters on the commit list for Florida, says everything will be fine come signing day. He's been saying that for some months now, that Florida will end with a bang on signing day. But when you see these type of events happen a week before signing day, it really makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes at Florida. I don't, it's the way I was categorizing this class moving forward was it was a good class with a chance to be very good. It wouldn't be elite because there was no way they were getting up there with the Bama's, Ohio States, Georgia, those type of classes, FSUs of the world this year. And next year would have to be that. Next year has to be that time, I guess, you really get that elite class. But, to follow it and to make it look like this now, and where you're ranked 31st, this, maybe this class only really has a chance to be good now. And that's unacceptable for the University of Florida. It's very unacceptable for the University of Florida to be in this situation a week before signing day. So, I mean, maybe there's some things behind the scenes, we're not going to see till signing day. As I mentioned, I mean, there's still some targets out there. There's still no chance for Florida to finish with a bang. CJ Henderson can still come along. Elijah Conley, if things are looking better for him. I'm a big fan of Darrell Slayton, defensive tackle there, who I think is a big-time player who I think will still end up in this Florida class. But, it's kind of hard to sit here and say, well, I think this guy's going to end up in this class after what we've seen this Wednesday night, January 25th, the week before signing day. So, it was a good thing, I guess, Zach Carter shut down his recruitment, not taking that Bama trip. Malik Davis got his fourth star from 24/7, so threw another 4-star into Florida's forte there. So, what happens going forward? Florida needs a good final official visit weekend coming up to lock down some guys, and move forward. And maybe try and do something on signing day that we necessarily don't see right now. So, you got the Gaddy twins coming in this weekend who are a big need at defensive tackle. Get those guys locked up. James Robinson, big time receiver. Maybe you get him. It looks to, I hate to say it, looks to be a Gator lean. But, is anybody a Gator lean right now? I'm jokingly saying that. Yes, it's not that bad where nobody's looking at Florida. But, it does make you wonder what happened. You get Brad Stewart coming in, Brian Edwards, I think, is now, if Henderson doesn't come into this class, another defensive back you bring into the fold. Can Florida surprise, maybe get Levi Jones after his FSU visit this weekend? So a couple big names Florida's still out there for that can really help this class. But don't get me wrong, this is not going to be, even we were talking earlier this week, this is now very, very, very minuscule, very small chance this class gets near top 10. Definitely not top 10. I'll eat my words if that happens, but I don't see the big surprise or anything happening there for Florida to get in that as it stands right now. So, yeah, that's one of those sides where, one of those I didn't necessarily want to have to talk about this. So, we're all Gator fans that mostly who listen to this, and we don't want to see our school, our university go through this that we are fans of. But we can support as much as we can support, and we'll go from there. So later this week, Gators breakdown and going into National Signing Day. Gonna have a special show on Sunday. Grabbing a guy I just was introduced to who has some analytics, some numbers to look into for the kind of history of recruiting for Florida. We'll look at that, how it compares to other schools, how it compares to rivals, and talk about maybe why Florida can't get the blue chip guys and why they need to get the blue chip elite guys to get back where we want Florida to be. And of course, probably next Monday or Tuesday night, a big preview into signing day. We'll have much more to talk about that after this last official visit weekend heading into signing day. And of course, we will have a signing day show Wednesday night. Joey V will join me on the early week show, that Monday, Tuesday show I was talking about. He'll join me Wednesday night as well. As well as Mark Moses. We'll get Mark Moses on from Melbourne, Florida radio there. And he'll join us as well to break down what happens on signing day for the Gators. Either way, it's going to be a lot of action. Florida has now 14 commits. Can look to get 24, 25 guys. So you're looking about 10, 11 spots for the Gators to fill in this next week. And we'll see what happens there as we move forward. So glad you guys check this out. You can catch it in a myriad of ways, as I mentioned, SoundCloud. You can subscribe on iTunes. You can leave a review there, and YouTube as well. But you get those audio versions to save all your data out there on your cell phone plans. Don't have to go to YouTube and eat up all that data there. So I'm David Waters, your host. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SDC and Gators Breakdown on Twitter at Gators Breakdown, and search it on Facebook. You can find it there as well. So we'll have more coming up, but guys, thanks for checking this one out as we kind of reviewed Elijah Blades and Kalion Hebert, one decommitting from Florida, one moving on and not choosing Florida at all, and now choosing the Miami Hurricanes. So for David Waters, I'm glad you guys listened to this, and we'll catch you guys later on.